Okay, you have got to have been in this situation. You're in the middle of a really intense argument, right? You're laying out all your feelings, you're being descriptive, you're emotional, and you look over at your partner and you just see calm. Like ghost quiet calm. It is so frustrating, right? It's confusing. Well, today we're going to look at a pretty wild biological reason that might explain exactly what's going on.
It's this total disconnect that's so jarring. In your head, you are experiencing this argument like a movie, a full-color, high-def, surround sound movie with every emotional moment replaying. But their response, it's like they're not even in the same theater. They're just still. It honestly feels like you're having two completely different conversations.
And so, naturally, your brain jumps to the most painful conclusion. You start thinking, do they even care? Are they even listening to me? Is this just a complete lack of empathy? It's a totally normal thought to have, but what if it's not the right one?
So yeah, let's dive into this. The ghost quiet argument. We're going to break down this paradox of how one person's absolute calm can feel like a raging storm to the other.
This really brings us to the central question, doesn't it? Are you getting the cold shoulder? Is this a deliberate, calculated move? Or could something else be going on? Something deep inside their mind?
I mean, these are the thoughts that just start racing through your mind, right? That their quietness means they don't care about your feelings, that the words are just bouncing off of them, or worse, that they're doing it on purpose, to be cold, to punish you. And look, these are totally understandable interpretations, but they might just be missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
But let's just pause here for a second. What if we've been looking at this from the wrong angle entirely? What if this whole thing isn't actually about a difference in feeling? What if it all comes down to a fundamental difference in how each of you sees?
And this difference in seeing brings us to this really fascinating neurological condition, and it could be the key to this whole mystery. We need to talk about aphantasia, or, as you could think of it, having a blindfolded mind's eye.
So what on earth is aphantasia? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's the inability to voluntarily create pictures in your head. You know, when someone says, picture a red apple, most of us can see some version of a red apple in our minds. But for someone with aphantasia, there's just nothing. They know what an apple is, they can tell you all about it, but they don't see it in their head.
Now, this is the best way to think about it. For most of us, hearing an emotional, descriptive story is like watching a movie play out inside our heads. But for someone with aphantasia, it's more like reading the script. They're getting all the information, the words, the facts, the plot, but that vivid, emotional movie just isn't playing.
And listen, this isn't just some neat theory. There's some really compelling scientific evidence to back this up. And that brings us to something called the missing sweat response.
So get this. In one major study, researchers had people read these really intense, thrilling stories, horror, suspense, stuff that gets your heart pounding. And while they were reading, the scientists measured their physiological arousal, basically their body's alarm system, using what's called a sweat response. It's a classic sign that your fight or flight system is kicking into gear.
And the results? Whoa. They were night and day. For the typical readers, as they visualized all the scary stuff happening in the story, their arousal levels shot way up. But for the readers with aphantasia, their response was almost totally flat. Nothing. Because without that mental movie playing, their body never got the memo to be scared.
You see, this changes everything. It reframes that whole ghost quiet response. It's not a choice. It's not a character flaw. It might just be a biological variation in how their brain is wired.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together, because this is where it all clicks. An emotional argument, where you're describing what happened and how it felt, that's a story. A partner with aphantasia hears that story, but they don't visualize it. They're reading the script, remember, not watching the movie. So no mental movie means no fight or flight sweat response. And the end result? A genuine biological state of calm.
So it might not be a lack of caring at all. It's just a fundamentally different way of experiencing the story of the argument. Their body literally isn't getting the same emotional signals because their brain is processing the information in a completely different way.
And once you have this new understanding, wow, it can be a total game changer. It can help you move from that awful place of conflict and misunderstanding toward a place of actual connection.
So let's just boil it down. What's the big takeaway here? First, that a super calm response in an argument might be biological, not a sign that they're emotionally checked out. Second, aphantasia literally changes how a person internally processes events you describe. And, maybe most important of all, understanding these kinds of differences in how our brains work can help us build empathy instead of just building resentment.
And that leaves us with this one last, really fascinating thought to chew on. If something like aphantasia can have such a huge impact on our relationships, what other hidden biological variations might be out there, shaping our lives and how we connect with each other in ways we haven't even begun to understand?